Welcome to my Little Lime Hydrangea Garden. This is one of the side beds in my front yard, and in the summer it features 3 rather large Little Lime Hydrangeas. They're about between 4 and 5 feet tall and wide, and I'm going to show you exactly how they look, tell you a few differences between Little Limes and Limelight Hydrangeas, and hopefully convince you that you want at least one of these in your garden. I'm Laura from Garden Sanity. Let me take you on a little tour. I have 3 Little Lime Hydrangea shrubs that go up this bed sort of like a hedge. And the first one here is in the front. This one gets a mix of sun and shade. Let me curve around here for you so you can see it better. And it is underneath the River Birch tree. I'm going to link to a video from last year where there was a lot of storm damage from a tropical storm, and this whole side of the tree that you see right here had all dried up and fallen off because of all the salt spray that came in from this side with the heavy winds. It was really crazy. And it's an interesting video to see because the little lime blooms on this side of the shrub also were damaged almost beyond recognition. Put a photo up so you can see. It's really interesting to watch the video. So let's take a little tour of this bed. This, let me move back a little more so you can see it even better. This is a big Piglet grass. This is a dwarf fountain grass. It's about half the size of Hamlin grasses, which I actually have in the center bed and showed you in my tour of the Pinky Winky bed last week, and I'll put a link up above. I showed you the Hamlin grasses. Now I cut those back so short this year on purpose so they wouldn't block the flowers, and they almost look shorter now than this Piglet grass. But it's beautiful, isn't it? Look at this. Look at these beautiful, they're soft, fuzzy, and on this corner, it makes a really nice focal point. Now what's funny about this isn't just one Piglet fountain grass. No, there's 3 in here, and I'm actually going to remove 2 of them. So let me show you a little bit close up. So I showed you the big Piglet fountain grass, and now here's a little one back here, not so little, and it's developing some very beautiful fuzzy catkins. But what's also happening is down here, let me uncover it. Boy, is it hard to get in here even. Oh, let's keep going. There we go. Right there. There's another one. I can see it a little bit better from the street. So when these were first put in, I'll show you a picture what they look like when they were first put in. About, I'd say, maybe 3 springs ago. They were very small, so they've obviously grown and filled in. And I have a plan to dig out these 2, leave this nice corner one here. But I'm going to dig out the 2, and I'll show you in a little bit where I'm going to put those in this bed. So here are 3 dwarf Mugo pines, and they are looking great. I do not do anything to those at all. They're very easy care, and they look good. Looks like you hear the crunching of the stones. I'm walking on stones, my neighbor's divider. And it looks like, you know, occasionally you get some of the river birch bark that comes off. And in the fall, I will start getting a lot of leaves in here. These definitely become leaf collectors in the fall season, but it is what it is. And then up the side here, as somewhat of a divider, we have a row of emerald green Arborvitaes. Nice and healthy. These are put in about 2 years ago, and they're nice and healthy. Here you can see through a little bit to the next Little Lime Hydrangea. You see the gorgeous bark of the River Birch, which is just stunning. And you see a Japanese Helleri in the distance there, as well as you can peek through the tree and see the center bed, which is the Pinky Winky hydrangea bed. So these blooms look much better. You'll notice some are smaller, some are larger. And you'll also notice, and perhaps you'll notice this on your own shrubs, is you will see 1 or 2 yellow leaves. These come off very easily. You don't have to worry about it. It doesn't signal anything. It may mean that the hydrangea needs a tiny bit of water, and that's not a big deal. that will happen, and you'll see actually one or two brown leaves down here. You'll see some leaves under there. It's really not a big deal. There's all kinds of pollinators that are on the Little Lime Hydrangeas. I see everything from 2 different types of bees to wasps or hornets. I can never tell the difference which is which. I see flies. And occasionally I do see butterflies too. Here in front of the Little Lime Hydrangea is a winter gem boxwood. This is a great boxwood to have in your garden. It's easy care. It's a moderate grower. Evergreen. Although in this windy location, it actually does develop more of a copper color in the wintertime, but I actually think that's pretty because I leave the blooms to dry on the Little Lime Hydrangeas, and so you have the sort of the almost vintage tan, sort of beige ivory looking flower heads against the copper leaves and then the brown tan grasses. It's just absolutely beautiful. Now this is the annual Ageratum. I also grow perennial Ageratum. I love them both equally well. Both are rabbit resistant, and I mean rabbit proof. Rabbits don't touch these at all, which is fantastic. I just love the blooms. They're very similar blooms on both the annual and perennial Ageratum. The only difference is perennial gets really tall, at least the version I bought is and gets that way. I plant these usually in this area every year. Last year they were bushier, but we've had kind of a brutal summer, so it is what it is. But they look pretty, and these blooms will keep going really until probably early fall, mid-fall. And then what you see behind them are 3 Kramer's Red Winter Heaths looking fantastic. These bloom in a gorgeous magenta fuchsia color all winter long. Usually start in December. Last year they did get somewhat of an early start, and they'll bloom into April. I'm not kidding. And there's a link above. I have a whole video on Kramer's Red Winter Heath, so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. And what you're seeing when you see the bright green on these, those are the start, believe it or not, of the flower buds. Yep, they start producing their flower buds now, and that's going to continue all fall. And like I said, last season, for some reason, they actually started, a few blooms appeared in December, which was beautiful. So these are great. I'm not even going to prune them or trim them. I'm so happy they're finally kicking in. It took a few years for them to get established in this spot, but they love it, and I'm thrilled because it's gorgeous in the wintertime. Definitely check out the video to see what they look like. It's amazing to me, as this river birch has grown, how it's provided beautiful dappled shade for these plants. But the plants still do well, and I say but because these plants were planted when it was full sun. I mean, this, look how thick the river birch trunk is. This was originally planted in the fall of 2014. I'm not sure how old it was at the time, but it was one of those small, little sapling, seedling trees that nurseries plant, or sell you rather. So the hydrangeas continue to do great, which is good. And maybe because of the crazy heat, they actually like a little bit of the shade. So this is the Japanese Helleri that you could see through before. Let me see if I can go through here, and you can see there are the Mugo pines where we started. And so now I'm on the other side of the bed, curved around, and just for reference, right behind me are the absolutely gorgeous Pinky Winky hydrangeas, looking fabulous. I think what's also so nice about how this turned out, and what I mean by this is this garden area, is because we decided a couple of years back to plant these emerald green Arborvitaes. And I think that was a smart idea because these blooms, and I guess, some people say they're white, some people say creamy white. I don't know. I'd go with like a pistachio green that changes to a creamy white, and then it'll get a little bit of pink. And I'll show you these a little bit more close up in a minute. But what's nice is they pop against the green, which I love. And of course the Arborvitaes provide evergreen interest in the wintertime, so it's not all sticks and twigs. So before we planted the evergreen Arborvitaes, what we had were red twig dogwoods. And what they would do is they would fight for space. You know, you see these hydrangeas go back pretty far. And they would fight for space, and it would look like a massive amount of green leaves in the summer. It just was a little bit unruly and kind of a mess. And then in the wintertime, you'd have beautiful red twigs, but you kind of couldn't see them as well with these twigs in front of them. So we moved those red twig dogwoods to the other side bed in our front yard, and I have a link above where you can actually see what those look like now. They're intermixed with yellow twig dogwoods. So there's several differences between Little Lime Hydrangeas and Limelight Hydrangeas. And one of them are the flowers themselves. Most of the flowers are going to be more rounded. They aren't going to be the more almost football shaped, conical shaped. I just had a bee buzz right at my ear. So this one looks a little bit like it's taking on more of a conical shape right there. But most of them are more round. So that's one difference. They're also going to be smaller. They're probably, oh, I'd say maybe between 3 and 5 inches. This is a newer one, obviously. But as they grow, as you can see, I'll move this guy with this guy. That guy's a little bit bigger and wider. And here's a brand new one. That's what's also nice, is these will keep producing flowers into the fall. It's mid-August right now, just to give you a frame of reference. And here you see some that are already starting with their pink color. These will eventually become all pink as the fall kicks in with the cooler weather. And they will turn into a beautiful pink, rosy kind of glow almost, depending on how the sun hits them. And they will stay on through the fall, depending on what kind. It's like Wild Kingdom here, by the way. I just had 3 birds rush past my head. Anyway, I will keep them on all fall, and I let them dry on the shrub. I keep them on for winter interest. And I will do that and keep those on until it's time to prune in late winter, early spring. Another difference between Limelight Hydrangeas and Little Lime Hydrangeas is that Limelights get between 6 and 8 feet tall. And because of the panicles being so large, you do have a problem with some drooping, especially after heavy rains. And if you've watched my Limelight Hydrangea tree videos, again, a link above, and I'll link all this below in the description area, you've seen that I have that problem with the Limelight Hydrangea tree. So I don't have to worry about that. These are really carefree. I prune them in the spring. I give them some slow release organic fertilizer. I give them Hollytone because they like a little bit of acid. And then that's it. That is it. Isn't that beautiful? Here we've got a wayward one over here. All right, so maybe this guy counts as drooping a little bit, but I don't think of him as drooping so much as I think of him as just a really long stem. Wow, let's see where this one came from. Let's see. Wow. Yeah, he just shot out low. All right. No harm, no foul. Again, here's in the back, you can see what they look like along the emerald green Arborvitaes. This still has somewhat of the, I guess they call it lime. I think sometimes it's more like a pistachio, but we'll say lime. And here is a brand new one again. Here are some very small ones forming. And here is one that's got some pink developing already. And I have a link to a pruning video up above if I hadn't already linked to that, because I want you to see exactly how I prune it. It's a little more involved than how I prune Pinky Winky hydrangeas, but it's worth it because, as you see, I don't have any flopping stems. Nothing. I have some stems that are low, but for example, these ones are low because they want to be low. It's not because they're drooping. So this is a really, really great shrub. If I can get in here, maybe I can show you. Whoa, look at that guy. Yeah, I'm going to back up a little bit. Okay. It's my garden, but they can have the pollen. So I want to just give you a quick example of where I pruned. You see where my finger is right there? That's where I pruned in the springtime. And you can see how many stems sprouted out from that. And that's what happens, and it's great. So you don't have to ever worry that you're pruning too much, because this grows like crazy in one season. I pruned this down to maybe 2.5, 3 feet high, would be my guess. And they bounce back really, really nicely. They bloom on new wood. So again, when you're pruning in the springtime, no worries that you are possibly cutting off this year's blooms. It doesn't work that way with panicle hydrangeas, which is what a little lime hydrangea is. So I came back over here because I skipped over a few plants. This is Blue Star Kalimeris, and I love this plant. Last year was my first year planting it, and I planted it in this bed, and it blooms literally all season long. I'm not exaggerating. It starts opening up in May, and it looks like this all summer, and it'll go into the fall. Now, it doesn't have any appreciable fall transition color. It'll go from looking this pretty to dead pretty quick when it does die, but it's usually not until mid-fall, and I shouldn't say that it dies because it's a perennial, so it just goes dormant. But it's very pretty. I don't have to deadhead this at all. But I will tell you one thing I did do this year is when it was first growing, it seemed a little spindly, and in fact, this one next to it is a good example. This just stayed kind of spindly even though I trimmed it back. But I gave these a good chop in June, I believe it was, and they all rebounded nicely and actually are nice and bushy. This guy, not so much. So maybe he'll come along. Last year he looked a lot better than this year, but that's what happens with perennials. Some work, some don't, so we'll see. And then behind here is a blue star juniper, which is one of my favorite shrubs. Again, don't do anything to it. It just does its thing. In the summer, as you can see, it's a beautiful accent color, not only for perennials, but for the pretty little lime hydrangea blooms. And then in the wintertime, when there is a lot less stuff going on in the garden, you've got evergreen of the Japanese Helleri and the Kramer's red winter heaths down there. You have the green of the blue star juniper, the Arborvitaes, and then more Kramer's red winter heaths up here. So these are also the Kalimeris, just so pretty. I just really love them. And what I tried to do is, that's why I like to plant also the annual Ageratums, because I just think the colors play off each other nicely. And up here in the bed, you get to see some very established Kramer's red winter heaths on each side of a white heather. This white heather is the most magical plant in the world because it blooms, it seems to be, and it seems to me, it blooms year round. Do I have a name of it? No, of course not. That would be too easy. I don't know where the plant tag is, but I know when I bought it that it was just considered white heather, you know, that was nothing, absolutely nothing fancy. So this has bloomed all summer, and it's going to continue into the fall, and it doesn't lose the little white flowers. It will actually keep these in the winter, and I'm going to put a picture up now so you can see a picture from last winter where it still had the white blooms on it. They were a little bit antiqued looking because they were a little bit, I guess, dry. In the wintertime, what you get, as you see in the picture, is you get beautiful fuchsia magenta blooms on these two heaths, and the heather in the middle has some of its white flowers still on it. But in the summer, what's so pretty is this white color plays off of the creamy white color of the little lime hydrangeas. So this is just a really pretty little spot. I really like it. So curving around to this next little spot, one addition to this bed this year has been this little quickfire hydrangea. It's also a panicle hydrangea. It's going to have a little bit different bloom color. It's very short because, of course, I just planted it this season. But it's eventually going to get 3 to 5 feet tall and wide, just like the little lime hydrangeas. So what I'd like to do is extend this hydrangea hedge, but make it now with a little quickfire hydrangea. And there's a couple little blooms starting on it, but I didn't even expect any blooms really this year. It's just a matter of getting it established with its good root system before the end of the fall when it goes to sleep. Next to the little quickfire is one of the knockout roses. And if you remember, if you've seen other videos, and if you don't, that's okay too, I'll put another link above and below of how I pruned these knockout roses. And this one I gave a big severe pruning to. I called it a rejuvenation pruning, although that is also the term used. That's the lingo. You can see the old cane, how far down I went. I went about 18 inches. And you see the new stems off of it. Unfortunately, it started out nice and bushy, but you can see it's still spindly. I'm not happy with it. And part of the reason I'm disappointed in this rose bush is because if you go over here, you see how beautiful the rose bushes look here. I mean, look at how pretty they are. They just look great. They're beautiful, they're healthy, they're tall. So I've got beautiful roses here and then spindly guy right here. So I think what's going to happen is I think he's coming out. I think he's going to come out, and I think I'm actually going to put another hydrangea here, but I don't know if it'll be another little quickfire or if I might go with something a little bit taller. I would have room to put something taller if I wanted to because we've got a lot of blank space in this spot. So that's on my list to figure out, because if I could plant something this fall, that's what I'm hoping to do. And then my really sad gold cone junipers. They just got fried this year. I'll try to save them and plant them in a new area. And in the meantime, those 2 piglet grasses that I showed you, that's where I'm going to put these. I think they'll do well here. It's a little bit of a drier spot anyway, and I think they should do okay. And they'll look nice, again, against the evergreen in the summer as well as in the winter. So you got the pretty pinky winkies in the distance in the center bed. And then you got the beautiful Little Lime Hydrangeas. A little bit windy today because we're expecting some rain this week. What a surprise. We get rain every week. But this is supposedly remnants of Tropical Storm Frank, I believe it is. Fred? Something with an F and an R. So pretty. I actually like these smaller blooms down here. They seem to almost blend in. They fit in nicely, right? Got them against that rock there. Butting against these shrubs. Yes, the heath and heather are considered shrubs, even though they're small. These are more in the shade. But the bees don't seem to care, I'll tell you what. I also just saw 2 bees. They were either fighting or mating. I can't tell the difference. I'm giving them their space though. I just love that these are going to keep growing new flowers. Even while we've got some of the older flowers already doing their thing. It's so